Hello everyone and welcome back to our Making of series, which is returning today. We're going to be talking about the Making of Stronghold Crusader 2, our most recent 3D title on PC, with producer Paul Harris and lead designer Simon Bradbury. How are you today, gentlemen?
Splendid.
Brilliant.
That's a lot to hear. So let's talk about the decision to return to the Crusader series after more than 10 years as our sort of first self-published title. What brought that about?
Easy decision, really. We always loved Crusader. Crusader was like the pinnacle of strongholdiness, and we kind of have wanted to make it for a long time. We wanted to get it. I mean, we always wanted to do it justice, so we wanted to wait until we felt comfortable about doing that, and I think that naturally for us that came about really when we could self-publish. I think.
But I remember certainly when we started making Crusader 2, there was definitely it felt like it was about time, didn't it? As in, I felt like there was energy there to make Crusader 2.
Exactly. I mean, if we'd have made Crusader 2 when we made Legends, that was really only about 3 years later, wasn't it? And I think.
I know, yeah, it would have been like about. It would have been roughly four games in about 5 years, wouldn't it?
All sounding remarkably the same. We were, I mean, in those days, still reasonably young, Paul, I think, and kind of eager to try new stuff. I really like Legends. I think I still like playing Legends.
Yeah,
and I like
great
a lot of the
combat.
magical kind of RTS sides to it. It's not always. The purist's favourite. A lot of Stronghold fans were like, well, why is the magic in a Stronghold series? It's got no place there.
Yeah, no magic in Stronghold Next.
So we stopped doing magic in it. But I still, I'm still proud of what we got to, where we got to with Legends.
Next question. Obviously, there's a big difference between developing a 2D and a 3D game. But did you feel sort of you must have felt some pressure in sort of living up to the hype of the original game and the sort of the almost rose-tinted view people have of favourite games from 10, 15 years ago. Did that factor into the development at all, or were you just quite happy that developing a 3D game is different enough to developing a 2D game that, obviously there are certain things you can do and can't do, and that's just the way it is, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, to my mind, there's two things. One is conquering 3D, and it has been, and it still is taking us years to do it right. 2D is so much easier because you're just splatting a sprite on the screen, and modern machines can pump those out at crazy, levels, especially when the original game was coded in machine code. Nobody writes in machine code, let alone assembler these days. So conquering 3D was one, I think, and then kind of having the time to polish. Because Stronghold 1 had a long period of creation before it came out and was quite a polished game. And then we polished on top of that with Crusader.
And it was like a year of development, or?
And Crusader was another year on top of an already polished game. Most of it adding in skirmish mode. And then, so to get to that point, essentially starting from scratch with Stronghold 2, Stronghold 3, to get to that level of polish has been harder because we've always started that. The firing pistol's always started by a publisher going, right, you've got X months to make it in. So we haven't got that as an indie, which Firefly was at the start. We had like about a year or so, 2 years of building things before we even started talking to a publisher. Right. So we had something pretty strong to show, and then we built on that. Yeah. So we've never quite, up until Crusader is the first time we've had a little bit more space to play with to allow us to kind of like get the polish. Yeah. We've still not had quite enough time, but I think we're making great strides with Crusader 2, and I think going forward, I think we've got more time to polish, and we're also finally getting on top of 3D. Things like drawing units. It's artists knowing how many polys and how many textures and how big to make these things, how many bones they have inside them, and it's coders knowing how to kind of utilize those things more efficiently. There's lots of technical things that you just need to learn, and if your art pipeline isn't right from the start, you've either got to go back and start again, or you just live with a slightly less than perfect
Were there any parts of the
Pipeline.
game that obviously you kind of were trying to bring over, like, you know, we returned to the sort of the grid-based construction system, and obviously that's like more of a 2D gameplay thing, but in a 3D sort of space. How important were those things for you, and were there any other sort of aspects of the original Crusader that you kind of tried to bring over in that way?
After Stronghold 3, we analysed kind of a few things that the gameplay in the skirmish gameplay is quite frantic. It's quite, you know, it can be quite frantic. So we kind of analysed a lot of things in Stronghold 3 to see, you know, were these the best systems that would work for a Crusader type game? And in the end, the grid system, we concluded it was easier to place buildings in a grid system because people like, you know, the efficiency of that, especially in a kind of
All the stuff clicking together, like
exactly, especially in a skirmish type game. So we went back to that.
People, myself included, prefer grid-based. Yeah. So essentially, whilst we could go, you know, more curvy polygons, we've gone back and are going back to more grid-based. So you get exact placement, so that you can layer your walls more efficiently, things like that. Yeah. So that's kind of going back to 2D. Yeah, definitely. I think there are lots of, you know, benefits of 2D that give control to the player. Yeah. That we kind of lost a little bit along the way. Precision. The precision being one of them, yeah.
Definitely the feedback from the players was that we'd gone too far in that, and I think we found a kind of more of a sweet spot between, you know, all out placing stuff wherever you want, whatever angle you want, and, you know, walls at any direction you want to, you know, whereas in 2D obviously it was much more fixed, but I think we've hit a sweet spot. And we're constantly, you know, it's not, you know, Crusader 2 hasn't got the best, you know, the perfect system. I think we're just going to keep iterating on that and making it better and better.
That's the key game dev word, iteration.
Well, I know we are working on the walls with Stronghold Next, so that the walls are going to be more efficient to build, more easy to understand, I think, as well. So that's an iteration that we are doing on Stronghold Next from Crusader 2. You know, we're slowly bringing this polish across.
Was there anything in terms of like cutting room floor stuff? Were there any potential ideas, features, you know, pieces of polish, anything like that ended up sort of, you know, not being able to do for Crusader 2 that we wanted to do that we'd want to do for like Stronghold Next and future titles, and, you know, sort of moving forward? I think
the big thing with Stronghold Crusader was actually building a skirmish game, wasn't it, on top of a campaign game. I mean, that's a lot of work. It's not just something you just throw in. To get that to work well and to have the AI working well
from scratch.
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing. So that meant that we didn't get to add in perhaps all of the bells and whistles into Crusader 2 that, you know, that perhaps Crusader 1 had. So there are some ways of attacking the castles that didn't quite make it in, which I think hopefully will now make it into Crusader Next. Some of the sim stuff. I know, Paul, you know, you're a big fan of the sim stuff, and we never quite got to do that justice that time around, but again, that's an area now with even more time to think about it. We have got.
A lot of people do mention that they miss that side of things in you know, the Stronghold games that don't have it. So I think that is an area that we can look at.
Yeah, I mean,
we can add that in.
I mean, anything that kind of catches you up in that kind of like daily life of being in a castle, which is like people walking around, you know, looking ill and kind of like downtrodden and living in a castle which isn't, you know, you're not walking...
Making comments themselves.
Well, you're not walking around in Disneyland, are you, at this point? You're kind of like walking around, but you want to kind of try and put people in mind of a different way of being, you know, a different time, and that's some of the stuff that just takes extra time. So you need that space, and I think this time around we have got more time to be able to make it a bit more kind of true to life. For whatever the period it is.
I think again that adds to the feel. It's not obvious what, you know. Sometimes people go, oh, it doesn't feel quite the same and stuff. And I think some of that stuff comes into it. It's often the things that's not directly gameplay related that adds to the kind of the feeling of a Stronghold game.
So I guess the last question is more about sort of, because these have been about the development of the game in terms of. Releasing a game, obviously with the original Crusader you were working with a publisher, but also you were I think you were a little bit smaller, roughly the same size, definitely overall company size would have been a little bit smaller. You know, it was a younger company. It had only been around for like, what, 2-3 years at that point, from like 99 to 2002. So how did that compare to releasing? And I guess I mean like marketing, biz side, all that stuff versus sort of back in 2002. What was it like releasing Crusader 2 versus releasing Crusader 1?
It was very different. Obviously, I mean, we Crusader 2 was our title. We were publishing it.
Yeah.
You were marketing it.
Yeah.
Whereas with Crusader 1, a big publisher, Take-Two, was marketing it and telling us when it was out. When, you know, we had a lot of marketing beats to hit, a lot of things to kind of do on a certain date. A little bit more leeway with Crusader 2 in that if we went, Nick, it's going to slip by 4 or 5 months. You know, that'd be a pain for you, but we're allowed to do that. And you know, we
did do that. We waited
exactly. And if the game needs it, we can do it. And there's very little kind of financial penalty to us for that.
Yeah.
So that was
within reason.
that was a kind of like liberating thing. But I mean, obviously, it was a test for us. I mean, you know, we haven't got the support of a massive marketing department with all of their PR contacts. So we've had to learn that from scratch. You know, I mean, I think the three of us have kind of had to work really hard to bootstrap ourselves up to that point. And now we're in a better situation. I think, you know, we know how to kind of just do that stuff. We're still, you know, very much guerrilla, and
we know who to work with. We know, you know, when we're being taken for a ride in certain deals, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and we're all still learning. You more than anyone, obviously, but we're in a much better place this time around, I think, to kind of know what we should do to sort of spend our time and effort and money on to kind of try and get across what it is that will make Stronghold Next, you know, the best title, and to bring across the points to the fans that you know why they should really get into it. I think from a production point of view.
Yeah, I was going to say, from a production point of view, it has been different. Obviously, there's the two major things are, you know, obviously if you're working with a publisher, you've got external pressure, whereas for us it was we had to generate that internally, which is is fine. But I guess the big thing is when you have certainly in the old days, publishers have milestones that they want you to meet. They want you to so that they can see progress through the game. Big problem with that, and I think things are pretty different, a bit different now. But obviously then you plan out something that might take 18 months to create. Yeah. You set out that plan at the start. You agree on it with the publisher. You get 6 months in. You go, month 7. This is ridiculous. Why are we doing this in month 7? It's just gonna this is just gonna derail us in future time. Then you're like, but you get paid on that. So you got to do it regardless of how stupid it is. Whereas I think the good thing for us has been that we're much more agile now, aren't we, in terms of reprioritizing tasks to fit what we need to do at that time.
If we've got a contract that says by October you need to have all the towers in the game, and we've decided that actually the towers aren't working for us, and we're going to redo the towers, but right now what we want to do is something else. Then we can reprioritize that if it makes more sense in production. So we have some pressure, but nowhere near. We don't have these crazy artificial ones whereby people expect to see certain things fully implemented by a certain time, irrespective of that might have made some kind of sense when you planned it out 2 years ago, but right now things have changed. The design's changed a little bit. Production has moved around, and it would make more sense to change that. A good publisher will probably listen to you, but at the same time, you've still got to renegotiate a contract, and you've still got to,
which takes time and
And if you might want to cut a feature, you might if maybe the feature just isn't it sounded great on paper.
Yeah, but it's just not fun.
You prototype it and it's just not fun. It's a lot harder if
you want to cut a feature or you want to swap a feature.
Yeah, exactly.
And they say that's in the contract.
But I think it still is very liberating publishing our own Stronghold games. Yeah. And Stronghold Next will be our second one. We've got better at it marketing wise. We've got better at it, I think, production wise, and we will be building on what we had for Crusader 2. So I think Crusader Next is going to benefit from all of those processes.
So that was the Making of Stronghold Crusader 2 with Paul and Simon. How was that? You enjoy it?
Good. I'm a bit hungry, but good.
I loved it.
That's what I want to hear. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Leave us any questions below if we missed anything out. And of course, if there's any other games you want us to revisit with this series, or to revisit older games or spotlight games we haven't talked about yet, let us know and we'll look at those. But for now, goodbye, and we'll see you next week, Thursday at the same time.